In this video, I'm going to be talking about the phenomenon of talking fire out of burns in Appalachia. It sounds sort of supernatural, doesn't it? As with many remedies like this, with people where people say they have the power to talk the fire out, to remove warts, to cure thrush, those kind of things, there's two camps. You know, there's the people that think it's total hogwash. There's the people that think that believe it, and they've seen it done. Someone in their family, they're capable of doing it, so they're firm believers in it. And then there's the people who think it's like of the devil, it's the occult. The majority of people in Appalachia, when you hear talking about whether it's talking the fire out of a burn, which is what we're going to talk about today, or removing warts, or curing thrush, or any of those things, they believe it's an ability to do that that's handed down by God. They believe it's a biblical or a religious matter. They don't believe in it that it has anything to do with the occult or with the devil or whatever. So there's many different sides to the whole situation when you're talking about faith healing in Appalachia. So a few of you, I have a video talking about removing warts. You can check that out. I'll link to it. And in that one, and along the way, some other videos I've done, a lot of people have asked me, would you do one about talking the fire out of a burn? So I thought, well, yeah, that would be a really good one, and I should do it. But I didn't really have a plan to do it until I read last week's paper, my local paper here, the Cherokee Scout. So right away I noticed when I was flipping through the pages that there was an article about talking fire out of burns. And I was pleasantly surprised as I was reading it, you know, rapt attention. I was really interested in it to see at the very end of the article that I was quoted. So then I thought, well, gosh, if that's not a sign I need to do a video, I don't know what is. So I'm going to read this article to you first. It's Fire Talkers, Faith Healers from Here, talking about the area where I live. And it was written by Stacy Van Buskirk. Stacy happens to be her mother and granny or cousins, so she's part of my family. In almost every Appalachian community, there are testimonies of fire talkers and faith healers who would heal people with the strength of their belief in the Lord. As you can see, Stacy's coming at it from the point of view, like I said, that most people here do, that it's a gift given to them by God. The tradition of talking out the fire has been around for centuries, according to unmaskedhistory.com. The healing practice has no magic involved, just the belief that it will work. Many call it a gift. Those who know about the tradition also know that it is a gift that can be taken away. Johnny Allen of Andrews recalls his father, Luther Allen, being a well-known fire talker in Texana when he was growing up. He learned it from his daddy, Allen said. He was going to let me know the words, but he passed away before he could. Allen said his father intended to let him know the words, most likely a verse from the Bible, that would be used to take the pain out of a burn. If he told anyone, then he couldn't do it anymore, Allen said. It's something that was passed down in the family. Allen said his mother died when he was 5 years old, and his family was left with a working father and 18 children. He said while the older children were at school and his father was working, he was left to take care of his younger siblings. I was cooking on the wood stove and fell into the stove. I still have the scar on my back, Allen said, pointing over his shoulder. I cried and cried, and when Daddy got home, he blew on it and said something, and then it started cooling down. Allen said he doesn't know how his father did it, but he knew if he told anyone, then he wouldn't be able to do it anymore. He would walk every day to town to work, and if someone had a burn, he would walk to them or someone would come pick him up, Allen said. I don't know how many people he did this for, but I do know it was a lot. Allen remembers his father as having long black hair. When he passed away at 75 years old, he knew he wasn't coming back home. I didn't know if he knew then when he was going to die, Allen said. He had hit his leg with the tiller and gangrene had set up. The doctors took his leg off and then he had a heart attack. Much like Allen's testimony, Martha Van Buskirk of Marble has a similar one about her great-aunt Essie Ledford of Vengeance Creek. Van Buskirk remembers burning the side of her thumb one time while she was cooking, and when she went to see her grandmother, she insisted she go visit Aunt Essie. I went to get Granny to take her to town, and she would not go anywhere with me until I saw Aunt Essie. I was carrying a cold rag with me because it was still burning, she said. So we drove to Aunt Essie's and she blew on my hand, then the pain started going away. She said her aunt didn't say anything out loud, but more than likely recited a verse in her head as she blew on the burn. Like most traditions, Van Buskirk said her aunt passed down the ability to her younger sister. I believe it's something you don't hear about much anymore because people don't believe in it, or the people who had the gift didn't pass it down, she said. According to Appalachian blogger Tipper Pressley of Brasstown, it was easier to get burned in the old days. They used wood-burning stoves for heat, to boil water, and cook food, so there was ample opportunity for adults and children to get burned in their daily lives, Presley said in a February 2018 post in the blog Blind Pig and the Acorn. So as you can see from the article from the Cherokee Scout, that my local newspaper, the belief in fire talkers is still well alive in my area of Appalachia. And from writing about it back then in 2018 that Stacy's quoting me from so nicely, I know that it's still alive in a lot of other places too. I'll link to that blog post below in the description and you can go read some of the many comments. There's a lot of comments about it. I used to work with a girl, a lady, and she said her uncle had the power to talk out fire, and that she'd heard this story her whole life about a little girl who was burned very badly, and then when she was put in the car and rushed to her uncle's house, he was able to talk the fire out of her burns, and she got better and didn't even have any scars. So she said she'd heard that story her whole life. She also said that uncle could remove warts. One of my favorite books about medicine in Appalachia is Folk Medicine in Southern Appalachia by Anthony Cavender, and the book has a section about burns, which includes talking the fire out of burns, faith healing. The folk remedies for skin burns was extensive, but 5 substances are more frequently mentioned in sources: potato, soda, vinegar, butter, and balm of Gilead. That's a tree. Potato scrapings, or sometimes a slice of potato, were placed on a burn to draw the fire out. A soda paste or vinegar was applied or by themselves or in combination. The buds or leaves of balm of Gilead were mixed with hog fat and cooked down in a skillet into a soothing salve. Other popular remedies were a solution of slippery elm bark, egg white, water from the first snow in March, and vanilla extract. Some people thought it beneficial to apply cold water, or curiously to situate the burned area close to another, stronger source of heat to pull the fire out. I had an uncle who would say that if you got burned, you needed to burn yourself again. Well, when I heard him say that, I was way too backward to say, what do you mean burn yourself again? So now I wonder if that's what he meant, that he just meant put the burn close to heat so that it would draw the fire out. Because why in the world would you burn yourself again? You know, that don't make any sense. In almost every community, there were individuals known as fire or burn doctors who possessed the ability to talk the fire out of a burn. It is not difficult to find people in the region today who will gladly provide testimonials about the effectiveness of these folk healers. The testimonial below was obtained in 1989 from a 55-year-old male, a resident of eastern Tennessee. The event described, however, occurred in the 1970s in West Virginia. We had people who could talk the fire out of you. I don't know how they done it, but they did. I seen them do it. Stood there and watched them. I couldn't believe it, but anyway, grease all over the woman's hand. I mean, it just burnt her whole arm, and the guy sits there and took a hold of her hand and just talked, and the damn thing, the burn, just went away. I mean, the blisters just went away and everything. I mean, it just started going and went. I said, I don't believe you. Yes, I sat there and watched him, JB, do it. LJ jerked a pan of grease back, and it went all over her arm. Her hand is burned up. There's blisters all over it. And he sits there and talks, and the blisters are going away. I said, what are you doing? And he's holding her hand, and I swear the SOB is sitting there holding her hand, and he's talking, you know, and the burn is going away, LJ said. I still don't believe it because I ain't got no scars or nothing. Anyway, you can go to Talladega, Alabama Central Prison and see him and talk to him about it. Okay, so that's quite the testimonial, colorful, which ends with somebody being in prison. But you can see how he didn't want to believe it, but he believed it because he saw it. It is likely that the burn doctor in this case used a charm well known in the region and in English folk medicine as well to talk the fire out, a version of which is the following. There came an angel from the east bringing fire and frost. In frost, out fire. There came an angel from the east bringing fire and frost. In frost, out fire. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. Another version collected in 1939 in western North Carolina substitutes salt for frost. God sent 3 angels coming from the east and west. One brought fire, another salt. Go out fire, go in salt, in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. Usually the burn doctor recited the charm in a murmur 3 times while moving his hand across and slightly above the burn, pushing his hand in a direction away from the victim, as though pushing the heat away, all the while blowing on the burn. According to tradition, one can teach only 3 other people how to talk or blow fire out of a burn. Some maintain that the person taught had to be of the opposite sex. No fee was charged for the service because it was deemed the work of the Lord. Very interesting. You can see from what I read from the paper and then what I read from the book and kind of what I talked about that there's many variations. So I've heard people say it can only be passed down through a mother's line, so a mother to a daughter. I've heard the opposite, that it can only be passed down for the father's line, father to a son. It can only be passed down to the 7th son of a 7th son, those kind of things. So it's very varying different things that you'll hear about. But I guess the thing that rings true through all of those is that faith healing, is that belief in the person that can blow or talk the fire out and that the fire goes away. That's the commonality in all of the different variations that I've heard. I'll be really interested to see what you know about talking the fire out of a burn. And if you're new to my channel, all you got to do is look in the comments down below. I have the best subscribers that share so many stories, so many experiences, and so much of their life. So that what they share in the comment section will outshine anything that I've shared. So please look there if you're interested in learning more about talking the fire out of a burn. And please share your story if you have one. I've never been burned badly. I'm thankful for that. But even a little burn hurts like the dickens. It just hurts. And what I was quoted in the paper, it was true. In days gone by, people depended on fire for pretty much everything they did. So there was just so much more opportunity, whether you were a child or an adult, to be burned badly. And we don't have to worry about that as much today, but of course people do still get burned, certainly. That part's true. I can remember being burned when I was a little girl. At my mom and papa's, they had a wood stove, and I like to, you never have to ask me to come in and warm by the fire. If there's a wood stove in the wintertime, I'm going to make a beeline straight for it. And I was like that as a child too, so I like to stand by that stove. But I had a little coat, little blue coat, and it had, of course, fake fur, I'm sure, and it was kind of that, not polyester, but crinkly feeling stuff, and I got too close to their wood stove, Papa and Mama's, and I remember I burned a hole in the back of it with those kind of coats. You probably remember what I'm talking about. That was easy to do. And I also burned my hand on the stove. So that just is something that hurts. And I think I've talked about this before, when you think about faith healing, it's easy to say, well, that's a bunch of hogwash. You know, and I can even see that point of view. It's a bunch of hogwash. But if you were in a situation where someone you loved was hurting, oh my goodness, wouldn't you want to believe in that hogwash, that power of faith? Wouldn't you want to believe in it? Wouldn't it want to be, I mean, that would be your salvation if you could help your person that you loved get better from a burn. I've often told the story, and I probably have in a separate video. One of the other remedies you hear in Appalachia in days gone by, now people kind of laugh about it, but when a woman was in labor, they would put a knife or an axe or something like that under her bed to cut her pain. Well, that just sounds so silly, you know. But you think about if you were a mother and your grown daughter was there, or maybe you were a grandmother, maybe you were an aunt, whatever, and in the days before medicine, modern medicine, and you had no hope to offer that horrible pain of labor, especially if it was a bad labor, wouldn't you want to, if you were the mother or the midwife, the granny woman, whatever, wouldn't you want to give the person in the bed, the woman in the bed suffering, so something to grasp onto, something to hold on to? So by telling her that, I'm going to put this under your bed and it's going to cut your pain. If you were the person in the bed, me, I know me, if I was in hard labor, I'd want somebody, if my granny, my midwife, my mother told me that, my aunt, I would believe her. So that would give me something to hold on to think about, to have faith in, until the baby was born. Of course, like I was saying before, most all these things in my area of Appalachia, and I believe beyond, throughout all of Appalachia, are all done in a faith healing, faith in God way. So it was faith in God that was actually going to heal, or going to talk the fire out, was going to remove the warts, was going to cut the pain of childbirth. All those things, religion plays such an integral role in the Appalachian culture. All those things, whether you agree with them or you don't, for the people that do believe in them, they're believing in them from a point of faith. That's how they look at it. So please do leave me a comment below about talking fire out of burns, whatever experience you have, whatever stories you've heard. And please do drop back by often as we continue to celebrate Appalachia, including talking about Appalachian remedies.